What a year it has been on YouTube. Officially 1 year ago today, I uploaded my first video on this channel with 0 subscribers, and now I'm at over 200. Like, how amazing is that? It has been such an awesome summer. There have literally been so many amazing memories this summer. Everything from getting to hang out with grandparents, cousins, friends, all of that, getting out in the outdoors and having such an amazing time. So what I'd like to do with this video is run over sort of the background and the funny moments involved and just stuff like that, kind of behind the scenes stuff. But what I'd like to do is kind of go over this entire year and summarize it and really talk about what I was able to do on this channel, because I was able to do so many amazing things this summer and even this winter. And so with all of that being said, of course, all these videos can be found in the description along with their playlist if you guys are interested in any of them. So man, this first trip was absolutely freezing. We were out on the water very, very early. Like I said, it would have been this weekend. So that would have been March 3rd we were out there. My goodness, it was cold that weekend. But again, it was such a different winter. You guys can see in the B-roll, there's actually grass, no snow. And if we look outside right now, there certainly is quite a bit of snow still. So kind of a different start to the year than this year, but certainly an interesting one. We were able to get out there, but there were still icebergs, as you guys can see. It was so cool to be out there with the icebergs. Kind of a rare experience. But anyways, with that trip, it was certainly one of my more favorite trips, being that it was the first one. You know, you always love getting out for that first fishing trip of the year. It was really cool. So we ended up catching a really nice brown trout and then even a coho salmon. Those were really cool experiences. And so next up is trip number 2. This trip was possibly my favorite trip of the year. So what we were doing was going jigging for walleye, and this was still very early in the year. This would have been a week before spring break. And what we were doing was jigging for these walleye, but we were following the pattern of the river, and we ended up catching a bunch of walleye, and it was a ton of fun just catching these walleye. I love jigging. That's something I've always loved to do. So catching these walleye was awesome. Then out of the blue, I ended up getting a big old catfish, and at first I had no idea what this thing was. Honest to goodness, I thought this thing was a log, because I pulled up on it and I was used to walleye all day. And it went, whoa, and my pole almost fell out of my hand. I was like, what is going on? So I finally get a hold of my rod, start reeling. I'm like, do I have a log? It felt dead at first, and I was like, I got a fish on. All of a sudden, it's fine. You guys can see the great bend in the rod, and it ended up being a catfish, and this was just an awesome experience. What an amazing trip this one was. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, we move to the Florida trip. Now, I was only able to pull out 4 videos from this entire week and 2 days in Florida. I ended up doing a sheep's head video, a surf fishing video, is sort of a deep ocean fishing video, and then a sea trout fishing video. Now, I should be able to do a couple more videos this week, and we've been doing a lot of research since then, and really looking up information on how to fish these fish, because it certainly is a different situation down there in the ocean. So anyway, starting out with the sheep's head video. This video was a really cool video. What we did was we drove out on the bridge, and then the bridge has these big posts you could stand on under it. So we were on those, and we ended up catching 2 of these sheep's head. And man, these things fight like all get out. They got that tall sort of body, kind of like bluegill for those of you freshwater fishermen. Those bluegill, they really angle against you, and man, these guys are absolutely awesome to catch. So you guys can see we caught 2 of them. Then we move on to the surf fishing video. Now, I'm telling you guys, if you aren't familiar with surf fishing in the ocean, you can catch these darn catfish 24/7, 7 days a week. I cannot explain to you how do these guys we'd get on and not even know it. So half the time we'd be sitting there with these little dinky catfish on, and we wouldn't even know it. So they'd be on our lines, and we're thinking we're fishing, but there's catfish on them. So anyways, we caught a ton of these guys, but then finally, at the end of the week, I think it was the last day we were able to go surf fishing, we pulled off a pompano, and we were so excited. That was all we wanted out of this whole week, because we heard these pompano are super good eaters, and we finally were able to do it. So congrats to my dad for finally catching that pompano. Then we got a cold day, and we decided to go out on our little raft. It's called a K-boat, actually, for those of you that are wondering. So we were able to go out on the ocean. We were out on the deep, deep ocean this time. And I feel like this video didn't get as many views as it should have. It was a really cool video. I ended up catching this remora, which is the thing that sticks to the side of sharks and stuff, or like whales and stuff. So I ended up catching one of them, and I was at the time out there, I was like, what in the heck is this thing? Because again, I'm not familiar with ocean fishing, so it was just so cool to be able to catch just a completely like dragon looking fish. It was so cool. And next we move on to the sea trout. Now we caught these guys on jerkbaits. We started off the morning trying for these redfish. That's one thing we are determined to catch this year. We didn't end up catching any redfish last year, but we did end up catching a couple of sea trout, and these guys were really fun to catch. They're definitely a common species up there. We caught these guys back in the bay, so it's kind of brackish water, and yeah, that was just the Florida trip was a really, really, really cool trip. And so now it's time to shoot all the way back up to Michigan. We started off another decent day catching some walleye, and then I started to do some more bass fishing as it was getting a little bit closer to the spawn. So like I said, we went walleye fishing. I caught a couple great walleye there again with my dad. That was again jigging in the river, ton of fun. Then I started to go for these next two videos, another bass fishing sort of trip at my grandparents. So they live on a private lake, and I was able to do a lot of fishing, and quite frankly, I caught a lot of bass that day. So then we move on to the best boat $300 can buy, and this was honestly a really, really, really cool video. This boat is very, very, very durable. It is, you know, it's really portable and stuff, and I actually kind of like the boat. Then at the end of the video, I stuck this smallmouth in there. Easily my biggest smallmouth, PB. This thing had to have been, I want to say, at least 5.5 pounds. Like, the camera does not do it justice. It was a really, really, really big fish. Then we move on to opening day of bass season. Again, this one and the walleye one were probably two of my favorite trips of the entire year. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure which one was my favorite. We caught countless bass on opening day. What we were doing was working the beds and stuff, fishing with cousins and getting out. It was so much fun, that opening day trip. Then we move on to topwater for bass. I love catching fish on topwater. Later you guys will see I did some topwater for pike and stuff like that. I just love catching fish on the surface. Then I go back to my grandparents' house, and I end up doing some carp fishing. Now, I have never caught a carp before this year, believe it or not, and I ended up catching, what was it, 7 of them. So it was an awesome time. I ended up catching some of them on a normal rod and reel, and then some of them on a fly fishing rod, and it was cool to just kind of get used to a fly fishing rod, because I haven't really done that much. Then we move on to an all bass catch and cook. These fish were delicious to eat and a ton of fun to catch. We caught tons of rock bass that day and even a nice little smallmouth at the end. Now we move on to definitely our biggest bass of the year. Now, of course, my dad caught it. It was on Father's Day, and we ended up going on this just random trip, one weeknight out of the summer. We just decided we were gonna go fishing. So we're fishing from the shore in this new spot we'd never tried before. First fish my dad hooks into. Monster, you guys. The camera does not do it justice. This thing was 7.5, 8. Maybe 8.5. This thing was a huge fish. You guys can see just how big of an alligator mouth this thing had. It was such a big fish, and honestly, that trip was one of my most favorite trips too. So now we move on to that surface pike fishing. I ended up catching a ton of pike on the surface this year. This was in the local river next to my house, and this was just a fun trip. Got to go out with my sister a couple times, and we had a lot of fun together. It was just, you know, an awesome trip. Again, getting out with family and stuff. Then we moved on to a underwater scouting trip, and what we did was we walked way up the river, and then we swam all the way back down it, looked for fish all along the way, and saw these ginormous walleye and big trout all the way and stuff. So we ended up catching a bunch of trout, and this video was just a really cool video. Again, just getting out there with family, and I think that's so important to do, you know, all throughout your life, is you should surround yourself with your family and stuff. And it was really cool to be able to get, you know, together with Isaac again and all the cousins that over in Minnesota. So shout out to you guys. I know you're watching this. Next, we move on to another pike fishing video. We had some very good pike on this trip. As you guys can see, I ended up losing it. Not very characteristic of me, of course. No, but it was just a ton of fun. Again, getting out with cousins and you know, just joking around all day, and that trip was really, really fun. You know, we ended up taking a break midday, jumping in the water, and it was just a really, really cool time. Then we move on to more walleye fishing with my dad. We were about to head in on this trip, and then we started catching all these walleye like that, and it was just a really, really fun and intense time. Then we move on to the weed whacker. This was one of my more funny videos of the entire trip. So Jake, great personality, love this kid. I know he's watching this video right now. Hey Jake, man, he thought he had a monster fish on, as you guys can see, and you know, we were all so excited. We all believed it. It looked like it too, the way his rod was moving, and then all of a sudden we look way out there and he's got this big weed on, and we didn't tell him, and he just kept reeling and thinking it was a big fish in the thumbnail. Oh my gosh, you guys can see it is hilarious. So he ended up realizing it was a weed, but it was an awesome trip. And of course Jake ended up catching I think it was a 30-inch pike that time too, so he definitely made up for catching those weeds. Nice job, Jake. Then we move on to Lake St. Clair muskie fishing. I never caught a muskie this year, spoiler alert. Me and my dad tried so much to get on these fish, but I ended up only catching a big pike this time, easily my biggest pike. It was still a lot of fun to catch this guy. Beautiful water out there on Lake St. Clair, a little busier than I would have liked, you know, that's just the way it is in the summer there, but we're looking to get over to the Canadian side this next summer and really get into those muskies. And then we start to get into salmon season. This is when my channel really started to gain a lot of subscribers. We ended up catching a lot of big fish, including the biggest fish of the year that I've seen. So we were out there fishing for salmon one afternoon, and all of a sudden we just hear this line start screaming. He grabs the pole and he's, you know, freaking out. We're all, oh my goodness, this is the salmon we wanted. You know, he's fighting this thing for a long time. Fast forward a little bit, we end up catching it, and oh, it was so awesome to be able to get him a fish to put on the wall, and it's actually on his wall in his house today. It's such a cool thing to be able to take people out there and on experiences like that, because we were talking beforehand. We were talking before, and he said a size, and I don't remember specifically what it was, but he said, if I catch over a such and such pound fish, then I'll put it on my wall, and we ended up doing it for him, and it was just really cool. Then we ended up going to Mackinac Island. For those of you that are familiar there, beautiful place on Lake Michigan. We ended up absolutely killing the salmon there. That was a really fun trip. A couple lake trout in that too. We move on to more lake trout on Lake Huron. This was a really fun trip. I love catching lake trout. We love eating them. Some people don't like eating them, but we definitely like eating them. Next we move on to the opening day video. That was a fun video to make, kind of a preparation deer scouting video. We ended up seeing a really big buck. It's actually in the thumbnail. That was a really fun time. Back again with Jake for the next video. We go to a private pond where we were catching these nice little bluegill and stuff, and that pond is actually famous for getting big bass. Jake told me there was big bass there, but I haven't seen it yet, Jake. I'm just saying. Next we move on to a squirrel hunting video. I ended up getting one squirrel. Show you guys how to cut it up in that video as well. That was a really fun video. And next we move on to the gutting a deer the right way. So I showed you guys exactly how we gut things, and it's extremely efficient. I'm able to get it done very quick. Next we move on to more fishing, and then finally my most recent video that I just posted last week. We moved on to another sort of, this was a different video I made. It was more of a sort of theory video where I presented my theories on what deer I think you should shoot and shouldn't shoot. Again, for those of you coming from that video, I'm not trying to force any opinions on you guys or anything like that. This is just what I believe, and I thought it'd be interesting to put my views out on the internet and or sort of share what I'm thinking. And so now we arrive at the present day. So I'd like to take this time to thank everybody for making all my videos possible. My dad especially, he has literally been the only way I can do all my videos. My mom for always helping me with support, Angie for helping me with B-roll all the time, Jeremy, Ben, Pete, Isaac, Jake, all my good buddies that have been in my videos, and yeah, just thanks everybody for making it what it has been, and for really making this summer an awesome one. Now with that being said, I'd like to say we are going to make this next summer even better, and this next year on YouTube even better. I hope to be to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the summer. That's my goal. So yeah, if you want to help support the channel, definitely hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, man. It keeps me encouraged. And yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Peace out.